Hello and welcome back to the Darkside of Git. I'm Paul, and this week we start talking about tips, tricks, and the best practices for working with advanced Git features. This episode is slightly late, and I feel I need to apologize for this, and I hope that the fact that this is a much longer episode will more than make up for the delay. Until now, we've seen how potential issues can arise and how we can end up in unwanted situations when using reset, rebase, and cherry pick. But there is a right way to use all of these. But to start us off, we first need to learn about branching strategies. Branching strategies or models are conventions about how Git branches should be set up and used to achieve a great collaboration workflow. When following a predefined guideline about how to set up our branches, we have the advantage of using the wisdom of many who came before us and had the same issues we are facing. Much like design patterns in software development, the conventions have quite a few benefits and fix certain problems we identified, but using them blindly and without understanding can lead to a far worse situation. One of the top advantages of a branching strategy is that it's very straightforward to follow even by novice teammates. They also abstract away from the issues we discussed in previous episodes by encouraging a few simple rules. These rules have to be learned, on the other hand, and respected. This is one of the biggest issues when teams start working with a branching strategy. Even senior developers only skim the fine print and think they can handle it. In all fairness, branching strategies are not rocket science. The problem is when the rules are not followed and one thinks one can bring improvements to the system. The branching strategy we are going to study together is the most common one, and it's called Git Flow. Many strategies currently being employed in production projects are based off of Git Flow, with minor modifications. This strategy is very well documented on the internet and is highly scalable and adaptable. It even has its own tooling to help you implement it, but tooling is not necessary and everything can be easily achieved using classic Git commands. At its core, Git Flow attributes roles for different branches. For example, the main branch in Git Flow is the production branch. This means that the latest commit on main is the state that can be found on our production server. You can see that this also works very well with potential CI/CD automated workflows. It's also common practice to tag each commit that actually made it to production to make it easier to roll back to a previous state if necessary. In our graph, we used callouts to symbolize tags. The main branch in Git Flow should be the most restricted, controlled, and stable branch of all. Only well-tested commits should make it to this branch, and there should be strict control over who can merge changes into the main branch. Also, directly pushing to the main branch should be prohibited. Instead, you should enforce a pull request and review process with a small subset of the team who are authorized to make deployments and are ultimately responsible and accountable for the merge. If main is the production branch, then develop is the branch that makes it to your QA server, should you have one. Develop should always start from the main branch, and it should be pseudo-stable. Only developer-tested code should make it to develop, and there should be no application-breaking errors in develop at any time. Develop should be tested by your QA team continuously. Similarly to main, develop should have strict rules enforced when it comes to pushing, meaning no pushing to this branch. Only pull requests are allowed. The main difference now is that anyone from the team could merge, but you should require at least one approval before allowing the merge. Then there are feature branches. These branches developers use when implementing their tasks. Feature branches always start from the develop branch and are considered to be unstable because here is where the bulk of development happens. We've seen how development happens, but what if we want to release? For this, we create a release branch. Like feature branches, these are also created from the develop branch, and they should be deployed to a staging server, an environment that is so close to production as possible. The role of these branches is to prepare all changes in develop for release. Developers in charge of the release are free to develop on these branches, but only to fix issues found by our QA specialists. No new features should be implemented on these branches. Let's say our develop branch advanced. Probably someone closed and merged the feature. Release branches should not follow develop. it should be clear what feature makes it into a release, and thus the branch will not be kept in sync with develop. On the other hand, should we want to release a new feature for testing, we want to test that the feature works with the current state of develop. So the next step is to merge develop into the feature branch and test the hell out of it. We need to ensure we have no blockers before merging back into develop. The process of testing should not take too long if we merge develop into feature often as possible. After testing if we want to release the new feature, we should probably merge it into develop. Most often this will happen with a fast forward. After this action, we could delete the feature branch to keep the list of branches clean. As for the release, if we want to push it to production, we need to merge it into main, and yes, this should be a merge. After the merge, we tag the new merge commit as our new version. Now we want to get our fixes from release back into develop. In order to test that nothing breaks, we do the same order of actions like we did for the feature branch. First, we bring develop into the release branch. Never bring this commit into master. It's intentional that we first brought release into master, and we only now merge develop into the release. As we've said before, release branches should not track the develop branch in order for us to have clarity over what exactly gets released. Once tested that the merge with develop does not cause breaking issues, we bring develop to this version by fast forwarding. After develop has been updated, we could delete the release branch. Remember, deleting a branch would only delete the label. The history would stay the same, and we could access all commits starting from develop, so nothing would be lost. Oh my, we discovered a bug in production. It's a bad one and causes issues for our users. We need to quickly get on top of it and fix it. Thus, we create a new branch starting from main. It's called a hotfix branch, and it's also a developer branch. We fix our issue on this branch and commit. We test the commit properly, possibly involving the QA team as well. Now, we need to bring our fix back into production, so we just fast forward main so that it reaches the latest commit. We of course remember to tag this new version of production. Notice how we've used semver notation for our versions. This is not part of Git Flow, but if you are familiar with the notation, it makes it quite clear what type of release that was. Of course, we would need to bring the fix we implemented into develop. There is no more room to draw this on our slide, but we could now merge the hotfix branch back into develop. It's the only situation where something from main would need to be merged back into develop. We would now delete our hotfix branch, as it's not needed anymore, it's fully merged. Remember to clean up all branches as already discussed. But this was a very busy graph we've seen. Can we make this better? We've learned some of the more advanced concepts of Git, and maybe some of them can help us out. We want to keep our branches linear, straight and nice, especially our develop branch. The more simple we can keep it, the easier it is to work with later. So instead of merging, how about we rebase our features onto develop? This would ensure linearity and would also cover our development testing needs. Once we have based our feature branch, it's time to fast forward develop so that it catches up. Release branches should still be merged into main. We really need that merge commit for traceability and clarity. But of course, we can rebase the release onto develop. Here we don't have the same constraint as with main. Now, all that's left is to fast forward develop to catch up with this change. We can already see that these rebases keep a much more linear and easy to follow structure for develop. The problem is, it's hard to pinpoint the moment the feature was completed, and the feature is also hard to revert, if that is ever necessary. But you should know that this particular way of using Git Flow is very popular, and you are likely to be using something similar already. So even considering the trade-offs, this variant has gained a lot of traction. But can we do better? We discussed the dark side of Git, and it might just be more fun and of more use. We should embrace it, not shun it. So let us improve our linear branches using the knowledge we've gained. What if we squashed and rebased onto develop instead of just rebasing? Squashing will reduce our commits on the feature to only one. This commit we then rebase onto develop. This helps us in case of merge conflicts, since we only have one commit, so we only have to resolve the conflicts once. Of course, we now fast forward develop like before. We can do the same process again on the release branch. Only now, we merge it into main instead of rebasing. We want main to hold a clear history of when a release was made, plus rebasing the release on top of main would potentially affect our ability to combine the release and develop branches later. So, as a rule, always merge into main. We can now rebase release onto develop and fast forward develop to this newest commit. Our goal is to keep develop as linear as possible and have clear release points in main that can be tracked to their origin. In case of the hotfix, we could rebase it to main when it's done and then merge it into develop as well. Our goal is achieved. Develop is linear and clean. Each feature has a single atomic commit that can be undone via revert very easily. The downside of our method is that we lose the feature development history. But as long as you keep features small and relevant, this should not be a problem. Once a feature is actually a collection of features, this downside quickly rears its ugly head. But with some smart interactive rebasing, we could potentially keep track of all features in a small number of commits. One issue we did not discuss is the presence of the release commit, the blue capital S commit, on both the main branch and the develop branch. This can cause issues upon our next release. There is a price for anything, I guess. There are a number of recommendations you should heed when working this way. The first is to merge the develop branch into the feature branch before squashing, test, and then continue. Do not try to fix all conflicts when you merge into develop. You could destabilize the branch for everybody. The second recommendation is to name the feature commits or squashes properly with all relevant details. Don't forget that release branches should only hold fixes, not implementations. Also, try not to merge main back into develop. You can merge main into the release branches to fix conflicts before merging the squashed release into main. Remember never to squash your shared branches like develop or main, and be careful when rebasing to never go beyond the diverging commit. Hotfixes should be merged into both main and develop. While you could rebase them on top of main, you might not even need to. Most times, main can be fast forwarded. This is one exception to not merging main into develop. You will have to bring the hotfix into develop. Explore if a merge is good for you. You have the potential to cherry pick, but remember the cost of that. And finally, remember to tag your releases, commit very often, and push at least once per day. To avoid or reduce conflicts, try merging develop into your feature branch at least once a day. This means grabbing the latest version of develop before you do this. This concludes our latest episode in the series of the Darkside of Git. This has been Paul, and thank you for watching. If you happen to have enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. Next time, we are going to continue with some more tips and tricks, like easy squashing, and using the repository hosting service to its full potential. See you then!